Flexbox is a layout system that was introduced with the goal to help build better responsive web pages and organize our tags or our elements much more easily. And since then, it has gained a lot of popularity. And it turns out it is now used for many layout systems for modern web pages today. So Flexbox is a one-dimensional layout system that we can use to create a row or a column axis layout. It makes our life easier when we're trying to design and build responsive web pages without having to use many CSS tricky hacks that can get us into a lot of trouble. So Flexbox is a very easy to use tool and really makes your life easier when you're trying to build that perfect web page. Hello everybody, my name is Kutlo. Welcome to Coding 101, where we try to help you a better developer one video at a time. In today's video, we're going to be giving you the basics of Flexbox and what Flexbox is really all about. And we're going to be getting our hands dirty in building some things with Flexbox in today's video. So please stay tuned and please remember to subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you like this video and leave a comment in the comment section below. So the first thing that we're going to start with Flexbox is that we need to actually create content that we're going to use as Flexbox. So we're just going to create a div element, and we're going to call it container, and inside of that we're going to have about 3 containers. So this is our container 1, and then this one will be our container 2, and over here we're also going to have container 3. So we're going to be using inline styling for what we're going to do today. We're not going to be using, so we might easily actually just go over here and say styles, but I actually want you to see Flexbox in action so that you can see how everything works. And after we've created our contents, the first thing that we need to do is to enable Flexbox within our content. So we need to declare everything that is inside of here as Flexbox. And in order to do that, we need to simply say, first we have to create our styles, then we have to say display, and then we have to say flex. And just like that, we've essentially enabled a flex content for all of the children elements that are within this container that we see here. So for the sake of clarity, I think actually what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create the style tag. I'm going to put all my styling in here because I feel like it's going to be a bit complicated because we're going to be dealing with a lot of flex functionalities. So I don't want it to be cluttered in one place. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to say container. And then we're just going to have our display over here and we're going to say flex. So every item that is inside of this container class is working with flex essentially. So it has flex enabled. So the first flex property that we're going to learn, is flex direction. And this is a CSS property or a flex property that simply sets how flex items are placed within the flex container. So items can either be placed in this property, items can either be placed in a row or they can be placed in a column. And this is what we have to define using this property right here. So in order to do that, we can simply come over here and say flex direction. And if we want things to be placed in a row, we can say row, but if we want things to be placed in a column, so essentially that means our items that we have placed are going to change. And as you can see, these items that we have over here have now changed and are now placed in a sort of like a column-like manner. And what I want to do is to make these items a little bit more visible. I'm just going to add a little bit of padding and some color into it. So I'm just going to say padding. I'm going to give it a padding of 5. I'm going to give background color of, let's say maybe this one is going to be brown. That's fine. I'm going to just copy this so that I can do the same for all of these items that you see over here. But once again, I don't want it to be a little bit cluttered, so I'm just going to do this and I'm going to pause the video because this is not actually relevant to the video. Alright, so I've practically styled these items so that they're a little bit visible so that you can actually see the difference whenever we're making a difference. We were talking about the flex direction property and we just arranged these items into a column. So another thing that we can actually do is that we can actually reverse these items by just saying column reverse. And so column reverse is going to put 3 at the top and 1 at the bottom. You can see how now these items are rearranged. We can do the same thing with row as well. We can declare these items. The flex direction is row. just refresh this. Items is row, and we can also do like sort of a row reverse on them as well. And if you look closely, you will just get this done. Notice that now these items have are studying. The container 3 is the one that's studying, and container 2, and then container 1. And you can see that the items have actually shifted to the right instead of to the left. So the alignment of the item as well changes when you do the flex direction. So you need to be aware of that, because that's very important as well. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to get rid of flex direction for now, and what we're going to do is we're going to use, say, justify content. And what justify content essentially does is it defines the alignment of the flex items within the main axis. So if you've already declared the main axis, you're defining where you want those items to be placed. Do you want the items to be placed on the left side, on the right side, or on the center side? Do you want the item to be spaced out, or do you want their space to be in between the items? So it just defines the alignment of those flex items within the main axis. So now we notice that our items are on the x-axis. So justify content, we can place these items in the center by just declaring justify content center. And as you can see, the items are now at the center of the axis. We can also do something like end, and you will notice that the items will now shift to the right side of the axis. We can also say start, and you will notice that now the items will shift to the start of the axis. What we can also do is that we can put like space in between each of those items. In order to do that, we can just say space between, and then there will certainly be space in between, even space between each of these items. There's another function, or there's another value that we can use, and that one is called space evenly. So the space is going to be distributed evenly across the axis. So as you can see over here, there's the same space that has been distributed evenly across all the axes. And there's a last feature, which is called space around. So the items are going to be clustered together at the center, and the space is going to be around. There's going to be more space around each of those flex items. So that is how justify content works. And now we're going to move on to another one called flex wrap. So flex wrap is also a subproperty of the Flexbox layout module. It just simply defines whether the items are forced into a single line, or it can be flowed into multiple lines. So if it's set to multiple lines, it also defines the cross axis, which determines the direction the new lines are stacked in. So it is as simple as that. It defines whether we're going to cram our object into a single line, or we're going to let them overflow to the next line and to the next line if we have many contents. So what I'm actually going to do right here is that I'm going to copy these contents. I'm going to get rid of justify space around, and I'm going to create many containers over here. So I'm just going to say copy this down and copy this. So I'm going to essentially just create duplicates. So you can see that if we just leave it as it is, everything is crammed up into one line, and we are actually supposed to scroll to get to the other containers. So we can use flex wrap, in order to solve this situation. So we just come over here to our container, and we just say flex wrap, and then we say wrap. And if we do that, you can see that now our items actually overflow to the next line. We're not cramming our items into one single line. We're allowing them to be free. And you can see how even it looks, how perfect it just looks, how evenly distributed it is, those items are. So with flex wrap, we can also say flex reverse. And it's practically going to do the same thing that we did with the justify content. But in this case, you will notice that even the space itself is distributed as sort of like, it's like a reflection of what we had previously. So yeah, that's how flex wrap works. And we can also declare no wrap to just cram all those items into one single line. So we just say no wrap. And all those items will be crammed into one single line as we wish. So the next Flexbox subproperty that we're going to learn is actually a combination of flex wrap and flex direction. So it actually takes in about two properties, or two parameters, sorry. So if we want to do something like this, you can see that we've declared that this item is going to be not wrapping, and it's also going to be the direction is going to be in a column-like manner. So instead of doing this, what we can simply do is we can just say flex flow, and it's going to allow us to, first of all, we need to define whether the item, we need to define the flex direction, which is obviously column, and then we define the flex wrap, which we said is no wrap. And if we get rid of this, you will notice that nothing actually changes. And if we were to say we're putting this in like a row-like manner, you'll notice that now it has changed. And if we want it to flow, we can just simply say wrap. So you can see, so flex flow is simply a combination of flex direction and flex wrap. Another property that we're going to learn about is align items. So the align items in Flexbox simply controls the alignment of items on the cross-axis. So if you're not familiar with what the cross-axis is, if you look at this graph over here, this is the Flexbox box. So it just simply explains what is what. So let's say we have two flex items that you can see over here. This line that is running across the flex items in a horizontal manner is called the main axis, and the line that runs across the flex items in a vertical manner is called the cross axis. So align items, is simply aligns items on the cross axis. So align items in a sort of like a vertical manner. So in the grid layout, it controls the alignment of items on the block axis rather, but we'll do grid layout in a different time. Tonight we're just focusing on the Flexbox. So it just simply align items along that cross axis or that vertical y-axis for those who did coordinates. So we're going to just implement it here. Let's go back to our... So before we actually implement align items, I would like to reduce the number of items that we have back to 3 items like we did previously. And I would like to set the height of this container over here so that we can see this much more clearly. And I'm going to give it 200 pixels. And I'm going to give it a background color as well. I'm going to give it a background color of, yeah, I think whatever that is. I can't seem to pronounce that. So that is okay. So the container is going to be 200 pixels. So we're just going to set flex align items. Don't worry about the stretching of those items. And we're just going to say center. And you can see that the items are now being put at the very center of that container. So simply declared that the container is 200 pixels. So you can see that if we say align item center, those containers sit at the center of the, those items, those flex items sit at the center of the container based on the vertical alignment or the cross axis, as I have just previously explained. We can also say start so that we can align those items at the start of that container, and you will see they will be shifted upwards. And we can also say end, and if we say end like this, you'll notice that the items will be placed towards the end of that container. We can also say stretch, and those items will be stretched out like they did before. So you can see that the default of those items was actually stretched. So those items were stretched out, are going to be stretched out as such. So those are some of like the basic properties of align items. We can either stretch the flex items, or we can center them, or we can put them at the top by declaring start, or we can put them at the bottom by saying align items end. So it's as simple as that. Let's move on to the next sub property of Flexbox, which is align self. So align self is created, or is a CSS Flexbox property which simply overrides align items. See, we've declared those items, align items, to we've essentially instructed them to stretch, but align self is designed to simply override that setting. So we can actually use align self in each of these individual flex items in order to override what is already written, what is already declared in the container aspect of things. So you can see that over here we say stretch, but let's try and change this to center. Just want to make you see something. So our items are now at the center of the cross axis. And if we come over here on container 2 and we say align self, what is simple, and we say start, we simply want to take that container to the top, and you will see that that container is going to override what has already been set by the container, and it's going to just like push that component or that element to the top through the usage of align self. We can do the same thing with container 1. We can say style, and we can say align self, and let's say, you know what, actually I want to be at the end of that. And container 3 may also be rebellious a little bit and say, you know what, I actually want to stretch. So it's going to say put a stretch into this, and you'll notice that all of these items will be behaving in a little bit different way and will counterfeit what had already been set by the container styling. Okay, so the next Flex property that we're going to introduce is align content. So align content works in a similar way as justify content, but except align items, except align content, instead of justifying items in the main axis like justify content, align item actually positions or align items according to the cross axis. So it's the same functionality as justify content, but instead of doing it across the main axis, it does it across the cross axis. But I'm not gonna demonstrate it in this video. I'm just gonna have you go look at it on your own. I'm going to put a link in the description box where you can look at plenty more Flex properties that can be very good for your development stages. But I think the ones that we've covered in this video are pretty much comprehensive for your programming life. So make sure that you check them out and probably start using them in your code as well. So thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to this video. Make sure to like the video. And if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section. Other than that, I will see you next time on Coding 101.